everybody, welcome to another Speedpaint. I'm Brooke, and today I'm showing off a piece that took me a while, but I think it had a good evolution, and I personally learned a lot while doing it, which I will share with you in this video. I never really know how long it's going to take for me to get a sketch that I'm happy with, so that's why you're seeing this process start with my completed sketch instead of a blank canvas. What I'm doing now is planning the shading. I found that for a lot of drawings with sharp light sources, it helps to plan out the shadows when I do my first sketch, since they had a lot of weight to the image, and they're just important to keep in mind when you start working. So when I first started with the sketch and line art, I was planning for this piece to be about my college life, staged inside a dorm room, and kind of about that feeling of being held back by work commitments or depression. I had a lot of moments in school when I felt like that. It'd be beautiful outside, but I had to stay in and study. And I say had to study, but most of the time I couldn't bring myself to study either, and ended up just doing a lot of nothing. This made me feel like I was wasting away, not doing the things I needed to do, but also not doing anything that I enjoyed or wanted to do. And so kind of the window ended up being this metaphor for like potential and fun and like warm weather, which even though I didn't have a lot of that where I went to school, and basically all this life that I wanted to go and do. And so I'm hoping the window kind of comes across as that source of fun and newness. There's a better word for that. Oh well. But I'm not really sure if in the final version of this, if that message does come across. To be honest, I think it probably looks more like someone who's just tired from schoolwork, but this was what I was working with in my mind, so there you go. With so many people quarantining in their apartments now, I think the drawing can probably be read to be about quarantine. Instead of feeling like you should stay inside and work on a certain commitment, or like you're holding yourself back, people now have to stay inside to stop the spread of disease. I know I'm lucky in this situation because I've been able to move out of my cramped apartment dorm, and I now live in a more rural area with a yard, and I can go outside and garden while still staying away from the public. A lot of people don't have this opportunity, though, and are quite literally shut inside their apartments and going stir crazy. So maybe this drawing can help capture that mood as well. Who knows? Art's subjective, so you can read it however you want, and I can't really say anything about that. So this piece took way longer than I expected it to. I think it was probably 15 hours in total. And one of the reasons for that is because I want to add in a lot of details. And when I say details, I don't mean like shading or textures or any of that. I just mean in drawing a lot of clutter and objects in the room, which I usually try to avoid that because A, it takes forever, and B, I hate doing it. Honestly, it would have been a lot more fun to put detail into the painting or shading, but I stuck with cell shading instead, and instead gave myself a lot of line art to draw in. Line art's probably the hardest part of digital drawing for me because I get really picky about the line quality, and I end up redrawing everything way more often than I would do with a pen and paper. I guess not being able to erase pen is a good reason why I don't redraw those. The undo button in Photoshop has really got me spoiled and really got me in my head, so who knows if it's a good thing or a bad thing, it just is what it is. One tip that I did learn recently that's helped me feel a lot more confident in digital drawing is the smoothing percentage here. I'm not really sure how to call these drop-down menu fill in the blank things. Oh well. But this thing's really useful. I usually set to around 20%, and it basically irons out all of the scribbly, shaky parts of the line as you're drawing it. It will make your brush or pencil tool a little slower, but I personally don't feel it much at 20%, and it's really, really helpful to smooth out the lines. Instead of what I used to do was just keep going over them and erase and redraw, and like everyone's hand naturally shakes, and I feel like it's really easy to see that natural shake come through in digital art. So the smoothing tool is basically the solution to that. I use a lot of references and stock images and other random Google images, as you've probably seen pop up, to help see how to draw things. I find that's really helpful because, I thought I knew what cats looked like. Once I actually pull up a reference, it's easier to see that my posture's off and there are lots of ways my sketch should be a lot more realistic. Same with the piles of laundry on the floor. I never tried, but holy cow, just drawing messy plops of fabric is tough. It really helped me to use reference images. So basically the cut clutter drawing that you're seeing right now is gonna take a while, and I'm glad that I'm not doing that right now as I'm recording this. Glad I'm done drawing the clutter. So as far as coloring goes, for this project I really wanted to learn how to use overlays and layer properties for coloring. For those of you who don't know how that works or what that means, Photoshop's big thing is that they have layers, and you can draw on one layer and then move it above or below another layer, and that really helps with coloring, and so you're not coloring over your line art, and you're not coloring over top of something you already colored. It's a really helpful way to keep organized. But each of these layers also has properties that you can change about, and I'm not really sure how to describe what they do because I honestly do not know what they do. So a lot of what I did was learning what they did today. Hopefully that makes sense. Oof. So based on other artwork I've seen, I think using overlays in these properties, or whatever you want to call them, I'm not sure the best name, it really helps set a mood in the color that I personally have a hard time getting by just arbitrarily picking the colors. Like, I've learned color theory, and in my mind, I know how the colors should work together to set a mood and still have constancy and look good together and all that jazz, but I have a really hard time actually doing it. So what you'll see me doing here is just filling out colors without regards to how they work together, look side by side, like desk brown, skin peach, rug white, or I don't remember what color I ended up making it. So in my opinion, this kind of just looks bad, like the colors don't work together. Like in real life, with the light, colors will kind of bounce and reflect off of each other, and so a wall might not be that just like a bright static yellow that you'd pick on a color wheel. It's probably like a way more grayish tone because it's in the shadows. But it's really hard to just do that out of your head and realize how to get these colors to work together. So that's what I'm hoping to use layer properties for, to try and find a way to get these colors to look well together, even though I'm just picking those kind of gross yellow color wheel arbitrary colors just from the start. I think that I don't think they look bad. I think they look okay. I know I said bad before, but right now, I think they look okay, but they just don't look supernatural. I wrote supernatural in my script, but that's definitely the ghost thing. So they don't look very natural. Like, as you can see here, the red of the shirt sticks out a lot and becomes a big focal point when you, view the image as a whole, which that's not what I'm going for. I don't want everybody to just be like, oh wow, look at this shirt. But red's a really strong color, so I'm hoping I can find a way to get the red to fade back, or at least have a similar weight to the other colors in the image. And like the yellow on the bedspread is exactly what I was talking about before, that just static color wheel color, and it just kind of looks unnatural. So I kept going with these arbitrary colors because I knew I was planning to try and experiment with the Photoshop layer properties, but keep in mind that this is a good example of colors that don't quite work together. So another thing, I put a lot of my colors on different layers, some on the same as others, but whatever. That's what helps me stay organized. But I know a lot of other artists like to work on a limited number of layers, and some people do all their coloring on one. So if that's the case, kudos to you, and don't worry about the awful number of color layers I have listed on the side. I know it's a lot and it looks disorganized, but it's just what helps me. So everybody just do whatever you want to do. When I say that I've never worked with layer properties, I mean it. I've used Multiply, which is one of them, a couple times to digitally color hand-drawn pieces, because a comic artist I admired did a tutorial just on how to use the Multiply layer property, and I read that in like 2009. And in my 2009 brain, I was like, perfect, this is all I need to learn. I can do everything in Photoshop now. So if you don't know, what multiply does is it makes all the white on a layer transparent. This is helpful if you like to hand draw and scan drawings onto the computer for digital coloring, because you can still use layers to color underneath it and not go over your pen or pencil line marks. So even with a solid white layer, you can just add color underneath it, and it just makes the white transparent. That's how I did most of my art for a while, and I was happy only knowing what multiply did for a while, but I honestly just don't know what any of the other layer properties look like, so that's what I'm working on. For your sake, I cut out the several hours of footage of me playing with every layer property to learn what it does, because sped up, the footage looked like a weird rainbow strobe light, and it was really hard to watch. To be honest, at this point of me recording the voiceover, I don't remember what all the layer properties do anymore, but at least figured out something for this piece, and I can tell you what 2 of the layer properties do. Also, here's a clip right now of what it looked like while I was changing, like going through all the layer properties. It's just a tiny clip, so strobe warning coming up. It looks bad. Here you go. So what I settled on was a color layer. That's the name of it, just color. And I filled it in pink. So what this does is it tints every layer below it. It keeps the contrast, but it shifts all the hues to whatever color your overlay is. So now all the arbitrary colors have the same hue, and I personally think it works together better, with the red shirt and yellow bedspread not sticking out or looking weird, even though now the yellow bedspread is pink, but you know. But I still think it needs a little something else because it is all just pink, and I'm not really setting out for just a monochromatic piece. So, you saw a little bit ago that I changed the walls all to blue. And so, by moving the blue wall color above the pink color layer, it doesn't get affected by the layer properties of the pink layer. But it does mean I have to take extra time not to color over the tops of all the layers below it. So I'm positive there's an easier way to do that, but again, this is my first time trying, and I made things a lot harder than they needed to be. For shading, I could have gone through and individually shaded each part, but I found a shortcut. So one of the layer properties that I learned seems to take whatever's drawn on it and apply that drawing as shading to the layers below it. It's called linear burn, and I have absolutely no idea how this works or even if I'm using it correctly, but I'm still going to use it. There's probably a really good YouTube video about the theory behind each layer property and how they work, but I just winged it, and I figure as long as it looks good and works for what I'm doing right now, that's good enough for me. So I use the same blue from the wall to shade everything else. As you can see, I'm flipping back and through it right now. And without you looking at the color layers before it, I just cell shaded. That's really hard to say. Cell shaded. I cell shaded the image based on my sketchy planning layer from the beginning. But now that I have that blue linear burn layer, that's the name of it, when I show all of the coloring together, the shading layer's applied, and instead of being blue, it's kind of like a purple or a darker shading layer, which I think kind of ties it together with the purple-blue wall, and I'm a big fan of how it looks, and I'm really proud I learned how to do that shading tip because, it saved a lot of hours that I would have spent just like individually going on each layer and picking a shading color for each. That would have been a long time. So here, this is what it looks like right now with all the shading applied, and I'm really happy, but there's something missing that you may notice, and that's what I spend a lot of the rest of the video working on. That's basically me realizing that all the frames and the posters are blank, and so I spent a lot more time than I wanted just filling in all the frames and posters. That's my least favorite part of doing really cluttered or detailed drawings. You just have to spend so much time on the background. I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end, though, and I hope you are too, or else you just watch the speed paint of a drawing you don't like, and that probably sucks. So, yeah, I'll probably fast forward even more. Woo, it's a speed paint. through the clutter drawings just because, holy cow, it takes a while. So that's pretty much the end of it. I hope y'all are having a good day. Stay safe, and I would love to hear of any art that you are making or enjoying right now. I'm always happy to see what other people are creating, and if you've learned any cool things in Photoshop that you think could help my art or that have helped yours, I'd love to hear about that too in the comments. Have a great day, and goodbye.